All right, folks, it is October, and we are just over a month away from the start of the CMMC phased rollout, when CMMC status requirements will begin showing up in Department of Defense solicitations and contracts. Right after the final rule came out, we gave a big webinar that sort of summarized all the changes in the rules, what you need to know, key takeaways. So this week on the podcast, we're going to replay the takeaways, as well as our thoughts in the webinar on solutions, enclaves, strategies that people are using to approach the problem. If you want the full webinar with all the details, we spent over an hour going through everything. You can register for that webinar on demand with the link below, and we'll see you next week.
All right, here we go. Okay, so the key takeaways up front. Starting on November 10th of 2025, DoD contracting officers will begin specifying CMMC status requirements in new solicitations and contracts, including task orders and purchase orders, as a condition of award. They will start specifying CMMC status level requirements. Contrary to popular belief, CMMC level 2 C3PAO status, the result of third-party assessments, can and will be required during the first 12 months of the phased rollout, known as phase 1. This is by far the biggest misconception that we're seeing in the ecosystem right now. This is probably the biggest takeaway that you can get out of this webinar. Related to that, do not bet on getting a waiver. We'll explain why. Do not bet on getting a level 2 self-assessment, even in phase 1. You have to hedge your bets here and be extremely careful, because if you're expecting a self-assessment and then you get the requirement for a certification assessment, you will be out of time by the time you see it in the solicitation. We'll explain to you why that is. And then as we start to talk about some of these strategies, the number one thing, in my opinion, that you can do to get a sense of how much time you have before the other shoe drops is to check your government customer's long-range acquisition forecast for the procurement administrative lead time expected for the work that you're planning to bid on. Work backwards from there to plan your budget, your implementations, your solutions, your assessment timing, and everything else. We'll explain what all that means. Yeah. But those are those main takeaways.
And if I could add one piece to that, is that's for prime contractors. The majority of the people that we're talking to, that we talk to on a weekly basis, are not prime contractors, or at least not solely prime contractors. Talk to your prime.
Yep.
Yeah. 100%. If you're a subcontractor, talk to your prime, because they are going to be the ones that set your requirement. It's not the government.
Well, I mean, we'll go ahead and say this. Yesterday, I posted on LinkedIn, Boeing sent their newsletter out. In the section where it says CMMC certification, the first 2 words, act now.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like they're already given the warning sign, guys.
Yeah. Basically, this entire presentation is building up to show that the phased rollout and what people think the phased rollout is really it's mostly irrelevant for a lot of people. It is not the number one thing that you should be orienting around.
Yeah. I mean, enclaves, like you said, Daniel, and you're going to talk more about it here in a second, but they can shrink it.
Yeah.
But if you're doing full organizational change, the problem isn't the technical issues.
Yeah.
It's your policies. It's your integrating the culture, changing the culture of your organization and how you function. And that takes time.
It does. And that's the hard part that people don't understand. It's like, we say this a lot. CMMC is not an IT problem. IT can go spin up. We can spin up this environment. Organizational adoption. That's the long pole.
How many calls do we sit on where people are like, okay, we want to get all the information for what we need. And we're like, yeah, let's schedule a weekend to get you set up and get you migrated and get you turned over. And we can have you up and running as fast as you want to go. And we don't hear from them for months because approvals, budgets, different authorities, decision makers, this and that. The problem is not the technology.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It is definitely a piece of it for sure. It should not be overlooked, but it is not the problem. I talk to people all the time. They can't even get a senior official to sign the documents required. The environment's built, SSP, POAM, policies, procedures. Nobody wants to actually sign the piece of paper saying, yes, this is real. This is our SPRS score, because they're so afraid that it's actually wrong. That's a healthy fear, but also it shows how out of sync executives can be with the kind of boots on the ground kind of organizational process.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts here on enclave solution takeaways for folks?
Yeah. Did you have...
Well, I was just going to say, even down to, super, what I would call simple decisions that organizations have to make, like picking a domain name for GCC High. We see customers sit and
forever.
And back and forth in him and Hall just on picking a domain name for literal months.
Yeah.
Now that's not every customer.
Not every customer.
Not every customer
No.
does that, but we see that, happen.
Yeah.
And it's just, that is what drives these kind of.
It would be interesting to see how many times it's taken longer to pick a domain name than it has for the DoD halt window to close.
I've known some
There's
companies.
definitely been some times where
been
that's happened. Yeah.
I think we have one customer right now that I think it was September of last year.
Yep. So
we were ready to go, and they have been waiting for a year now.
Hey, it's a big decision.
Yeah.
Naming a boat, naming a domain.
That's right.
These are big decisions here.
The USS. So the enclave slide, going back to that for just a second. So the enclave slide, there's kind of two versions of an enclave. There's a cloud-based enclave, all VDI-driven virtual desktop, Microsoft Gov Cloud. Keep all your CUI in there. Let's not let it touch on-prem at all. That's not practical for a lot of people, right? I mean, that's a good solution if maybe you're like an SI or a developer, something like that. Most organizations have to end up leaning towards a hybrid enclave, we call it, right? So bringing some portion of their on-prem in scope for processing, storing, or transmitting CUI, printers, workstations, mobile devices, things of that nature, right? So when you're looking at an enclave solution like the ones that we deploy and that we manage, kind of having an understanding of not necessarily what's going to get me certified the fastest, although that's very important. You have to understand when you actually go and win said contract, all of your processing, storing, and transmitting of CUI on behalf of that contract has to fit in this box.
Yep, that is.
So buying an enclave and getting a checkbox, and then a month later realizing I won a contract, but I can't work on any of the data in that system because I didn't bring those assets in scope and I can't fulfill the contract. That's a problem.
Hey, not only are we going to make decisions in 45 days that we've never made that quickly before, we're also going to digitally and cloud transform our entire company in 45 days, and it's going to work.
It just doesn't. It doesn't work like that.
Plan ahead.
This is one of the things I gotta figure out how primes are going to deal with this. Is how do they tie the UIDs of their subs to the scope of the processing of the environment that is supposed to be being used to process that information? Because we saw this. With some C3PAOs back in the early days.
Yep.
It's been taken care of for the most part now, but back in the early days, there were some people that wanted to become C3PAOs that were standing up enclave environments, standalone, getting them certified by DibCAC, but then literally never processing any data in their systems at all.
Yeah.
And there's got to be some kind of check on that, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely getting the program off the ground at that point. So I'm sure that once we do the second phase of rulemaking to pick up the wrinkles, the gaps, and lessons learned from there, that we'll be able to close those things. It will be interesting to see how those different things manifest over the phased rollout, for sure, whatever the phased rollout is worth. Any thoughts here, Daniel, as we start to wrap up?
Yeah, so just kind of be aware, not all enclaves are created equal, right? So there's the owned by vendor, managed by vendor. This is going to be a FedRAMP moderate equivalent cloud and or authorized cloud. I don't think there are any authorized that I'm aware of, but and then there's the you own it and we manage it, right? So the method that we use is we provision a Microsoft subscription under your company's name and we deploy and support that environment. The reason that's a lot more flexible is because we're using the full Microsoft stack, right? We can connect things, we can scale things up, scale things down, we can expand your boundary a lot easier, right? We can do so many more things than if you're buying like a $200 a month seat for a hosted virtual desktop that somebody else owns. And the big reason that this is important, going back to the previous slide for a second, just conversationally, is that if you need to extend your boundary, how easy is it to do if you're locked into a VDI subscription with somebody else, right? And if you have to pull out of that environment at any time, going back to our significant change, if you're pulling out of the place that you're storing all your CUI and putting it in a brand new place storing all your CUI, significant architectural change, right? Triggering of a recertification. Just got to be aware when you're vetting enclave solutions, pros and cons on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely.